My name is Stuart Donlan. Ever since I was a little kid, I've been obsessed with stories. The ones in books were cool, but for me there was nothing better than the ones that I saw on TV. They felt real. The characters were more than just what I could imagine. They were fully alive. I think what drew me in the most, though, was all the different personalities I saw. One day I was scrolling through Facebook Marketplace, as I do, and some lady was selling two $50 Texas Roadhouse gift cards for $100. And I assume you get why that's a little silly. Everybody, regardless of the show genre or format, seemed so sure of themselves. They always knew exactly who they were and where they were going. Their next steps were never in doubt. And so I felt the need to message this lady, even though I had no interest in buying them under any circumstances.
Okay.
Just what was she thinking? She did eventually change it. She marked it down to $90, but that still really, in my opinion, was not even enough to justify it.
Sure.
I wanted to be like them, living that perfect life that I saw on the TV screen.
So tell me a little bit about you and what brings you in today. Like, what was the reason that kind of prompted you to send the email asking to come in?
It wasn't until I got to college, though, that I finally got to see what it's like from the other side. You see, when I left high school, I had no clue what I wanted to do with my life. So rather than choosing a specific career path, I chose to major in media production and communication because it sounded interesting enough, and I thought it would give me time to figure out what I actually wanted to do. I'm a senior in college, got one semester left. I'm a communications major too. And I don't know if you know this about communications majors, but I think we're the most universally made fun of major.
Really?
Yeah, everybody looks down on communications majors.
No, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
These are the worst college majors and why. If you're going to major in any of these, I literally feel so bad for you.
Top 5 worst college majors. Here we go.
It's true, or it's just in my head. I don't know.
Off at number 1, communications and media arts. I feel so bad for you if you're going to major in this.
And number 5, communications.
During my time in college, I ended up finding my niche in video production. While they're still very early in the discussions, we decided to sit down with Olivet Fire Chief John Collins. I think part of it was the little kid in me that had always been obsessed with what he saw on the screen. And after a little while, I ended up getting to be pretty decent at it. But after almost 4 years in college, I found myself right back in the same position, completely unsure of what career path to pursue. I'm Stuart Donlan, signing off. Except now, with less time to put off a decision and more knowledge about how to shoot and edit videos. At this point in my life, I've spent everything I've done has been in school. And then all of a sudden, you gotta step out into the real world. I don't know how that's gonna work. Suddenly, that picture-perfect TV future seemed a lot harder to attain.
Would it surprise you to find out that perfectionism is actually in the DSM-5 as a problem?
No, I guess it wouldn't surprise me based on the way you said that. So as I stared at the doubt and uncertainty ahead of me, I decided to do what I had learned to in school and take some videos of it. That's not me, by the way. That's some video I took of my nephew over Christmas on an old camcorder. I knew I'd need something to voice over to, and I figured that'd be a good opportunity. Here's some video from that same day on my more modern camera. Not nearly as convincing. Video can be a bit deceiving like that. I'd done a documentary once before in my schooling, but it was a complete mess. This shot's out of focus, the audio here sucks. Every interview is basically just at people's desks. You get the point. If I recall correctly, and I do because it's absolutely burned into my memory, I got a 77% on it. So to hopefully prevent that from happening again, I decided to consult some people who know a few things about documentary making. So I sat down with Emmy Award-winning documentarian Troy Hale to get some insight on the process I was about to undertake. Let's say you were running this interview.
Now we're getting into it, yeah.
How would you set this up? This will be me, and then this can be you. And here's your camera. What sort of angles would you take?
Which one's me?
That one.
That one?
No, I'm Macho Man.
Oh.
You.
Well, I mean like that. Or like that. That's my shot. Yeah, I mean, that's what I was talking about with basic filmmaking. It's a language, right? 2-shot, over the shoulder 1, over the shoulder 2. You know, single, 5 shots of scene coverage, and then if you're doing a documentary, it's usually an over the shoulder, but there's no shoulder, and then that's your basic interview shot.
One thing I've learned in my schooling, though, is that any good journalist talks to multiple sources. So I traveled to Detroit to talk to professional videographer Zach Oshinsky. He doesn't have any Emmys, but everybody starts somewhere. He doesn't actually live in Detroit, but it's pretty close, so I drove to Detroit while I was out there and took a bunch of B-roll, and now I just don't want it to go to waste. Anyways. How do you decide on a topic?
I think the topic decides you.
What would you do if you went into this documentary and you go in with how you think it's going to go, and you get in there and you start talking to people and it's really not even close?
Yeah.
What do you just kind of edit it to fit your narrative, or what do you do in that case?
Yeah, no, I go with where the story goes. You go out there with a roadmap. Every time you go on a shoot, you go, I think I want this, 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 and this. But you get out there and it's not the way that you thought it was going to be. So you allow yourself to be guided by the way it actually is rather than the way you thought it was.
You got to just go into it with the open mind. And it's taken a long time to figure that out, because there's been so many times where I'm like, I really want this thing to happen, and it doesn't happen. And then, your expectations are high.
Do you mind just, for the purpose of making it look like I came here on like a few different days?
Oh, yeah,
Do you mind throwing on a different shirt for me?
Can I go put a different shirt of mine on?
No, this is fine. After 2 brief conversations with industry professionals, I felt like I was basically an expert, which meant I could officially move forward with my journey of self-discovery, and I figured there's really only one place to start.
You're listening to Top 10 with Stu and Ben, your weekly Top 10 podcast with all the opinions you never knew you needed. Now, on to the show.
A few years ago, my classmate Ben Porter and I were in the exact same position.
Oh, goodness. It's like every Friday night is date night. But this week, the neighbors ask you to go out on a double date, and you're excited because you don't have to talk to the wife as much.
2 communications majors unsure of what our next steps were.
Are you comparing me to a wife in this situation?
A wife that I don't like, yes.
The only difference was Ben was a year ahead of me.
The kids would not take it well. And then there's assets and like all that crazy stuff.
So I decided to talk to the man who less than a year ago stood in my exact same shoes, albeit with much wider feet.
That's why I've taken on another lover.
Well, maybe I'd be.
With my cash cow hat in hand, I headed back to Detroit in search of guidance. What do you think of the cash cow hat?
I like it. You can pull it off.
Do you actually mean that, or is
Yes.
that just you being nice?
No, I cannot pull that off, but it looks good on you. It's very nice.
Thank you. Do you ever worry, about your future, making it, the perfect, everybody has a vision in their head somewhat. Do you ever worry about, how am I going to find that fulfillment?
No, I wouldn't say I worry about it. I understand that starts with the things that I do today. I think with uncertainty, I tend to think about all the other times in life when I've been uncertain, not knowing what to do or which path to choose or whatever it may be. And then I look at where I'm at now, and I just remember that things have a way of working themselves out.
Cool. While I wanted to trust Ben, I still wasn't sure that I could just leave it up to chance that I would find fulfillment in what I'm doing. So I turned to religion, or in this case, Reverend Michael Fales, to hopefully find the certainty that Ben couldn't provide me.
It took me many years to figure out what I thought God wanted me to do, and I'm now at a place where I feel that I'm doing what God is calling me to do. So when people have asked me, how do you know that feeling? All I can say is the feeling that I have is a feeling of settledness, that I feel like I'm in the place that God wants me to be.
Unfortunately, despite how much reassurance I was being given, I just couldn't escape the thought that there was something looming over my head. All my life, I've had people in media that I look up to, the ones that in an ideal world, I would be working with. But as the end of my time in college grew nearer, the goal of landing my dream job seemed harder to achieve, and the desperate desire to just find a job became all I could focus on. So I set up a meeting with a man who, by all considerations, has achieved great career success, to see if I have what it takes to make it in this dog-eat-dog world. People talk about work-life balances. Is that real, or should I just give up that dream now?
I think it's absolutely real. It's absolutely real, and it's highly individualized. And one of the principles that I think is so important to being effective is the idea of managing your time and your priorities together. And personal priorities, your individual priorities, apart from your career priorities, are really important. And I think being mindful about that. So if you know, certainly for me, those priorities have changed over time. You know, when I was married with no kids, my personal life looked a lot different, especially when I was young and we were both sort of going, full speed with our careers. And then I think that certainly once I had kids, or I had a daughter, and her priorities became my priorities. So I think everybody ought to be able to find a balance between your work priorities and your personal priorities.
Sorry, I had to skip lunch. I didn't pick up on everything President Corey said, but it seemed like prioritizing my personal balances was pretty crucial to finding true career fulfillment. So I sat down with professional psychologist and counselor, William Haggerty, to try and better understand myself as I prepared to enter the job market.
I got my PhD in psychology from Capella University in 2019, and along the way I started doing therapy in 2010, so I've been a licensed therapist since 2010, and then I started teaching at Olivet as an adjunct in 2010, then I was hired as a full-time faculty member in 2018, and I've been here ever since.
So should I probably refer to you as doctor?
You may, that's fine.
And before I knew it, we were getting to the bottom of some of my biggest problems. Why would I pay her the $100 when I could easily just go spend the $100 at Texas Roadhouse? Why put in the middleman?
What would have been the right price for you?
Anything. I mean, there has to be some value. She ended up dropping it to $90 after I confronted her about it.
Was that good enough?
No, I didn't actually want that. Ultimately, I didn't want them at all. We were unpacking a lot more than I had expected to.
Hey, what's up, champ? You ready to go? Team's waiting for you.
Yeah. Dad, do you ever worry that you're gonna let people down?
What do you mean by that?
I worry I'm gonna go out there and make a mistake and people are gonna think I'm a failure.
Hey, Stu, I don't think you have anything to worry about, buddy. Just go out there, give it your best, and whatever happens, happens. You can't really control the outcome. You know? As long as you give it all you've got, that's all that really matters.
Thanks, Dad. You're the best.
Yeah, you're the best. Now you go out there and get it done, and maybe afterwards we'll go grab some ice cream.
Why do not me, not actually me, but for the purpose of this question, if you want to direct it to me and even address me as Stuart in the question, That's fine. But why do I keep putting off making big decisions?
So many different reasons why you might do that. Like you said before, you might be afraid of what's unknown about making that decision. You might prefer what's going on now. You might be scared of having to deal with whatever that new decision is. Like, for example, graduating from Olivet means that you have to make a new decision. You have to look forward. And sometimes going out into the real world is scary and unknown. So you don't want to think about it. You want to put it off.
All the talk about jobs and making decisions on the career path I want to take was honestly starting to scare me. So I put it off for a little while. I took a trip back to the Detroit area to revisit my less acclaimed documentary mentor. What separates a good documentary from a great documentary?
I don't know yet. You know, okay, I can tell you what. You know these Netflix ones that have been coming out? Those are good, but they're very formulaic. Like, you kind of know what you're getting. News clips, you know, phone conversations. Those are meh. So maybe a great documentary is your timing. It could be timing.
If I'm being more realistic with myself, what separates a bad documentary from a passable documentary? The more I learned about making documentaries, though, the less they seemed like a reliable vessel for storytelling. So I went back to my renowned Emmy Award-winning friend Troy Hale for clarification. Is there truth in the stuff that we kind of see on TV, or do you think it's all like faked to an extent? You know, like, is there levels? Because like when you watch a sitcom, you know that's not real. We still get invested in it, kind of like it's real. But then you take something like a documentary where these are real people giving real answers, but is it really real if like the director has a hand in it and what's being said? And
No. It's the best version of reality, right? We have lights up. We make people look much nicer than they do in real life. Everything's controlled. So it is a fake version of reality. And then even with documentary, just by you as a director placing the camera in a certain place, you've now set a specific angle that the audience is looking at. They can't look at anything differently. They're looking at it the way that you want them to look at it. So this isn't a real conversation. I don't talk to my friends with lights and 3 cameras.
Other than the part where he implied that we weren't friends, my conversation with Emmy Award-winning documentarian Troy Hale gave me some ideas on what I could do to make sure my documentary was as real as possible. As Emmy Award-winning documentarian Troy Hale said, a camera angle can unknowingly convey a specific message to an audience. So that means that my goal should be to make that message one of transparency. So let's say we start with a standard-looking interview shot. It's pretty normal. Looks nice, but I can't be sure that it's not sending the audience some unintended message. And the last thing I want to do is exploit my interview subjects or my viewers. So, how can I make it clear that I have nothing to hide? By using a second camera to keep track of what's happening on the first one. While this plan seems foolproof, I know my more keen spectators are already raising questions, which is why I set up a third camera to ensure that nothing fishy was going on with camera 2 while I was keeping an eye on camera 1. But as us in the biz say, it's always better safe than sorry. So I set up a 4th and 5th camera so that anyone who watches this documentary will know that I have nothing to hide. However, I knew that true skeptics would still likely assume some ulterior motives. So I set up a 6th camera that I kept under watch using my Nintendo DSi, which unfortunately can only take photos, an obvious weak point in my attempt to be as transparent as possible. So to combat this, I set up an 8th camera to make sure that anyone who happens to watch this can be sure that I'm not trying to send a subtle message through my camera placement or angle. And just for good measure, I added one more because I thought it looked nice. What would you recommend to people who are unsure of what they want to do with their life? What would you recommend like they do to help figure it out?
Yeah, I guess I'd recommend doing something similar to what I did, where you kind of make a list of the things that you enjoy and the things that you feel like you're good at. But I think I'd also recommend thinking about the things that are important to you. What are you passionate about? In what ways do you want to help other people, and in what ways do you want to contribute to the world?
While I'd managed to make my camera angles as honest and transparent as possible, I had unknowingly introduced a completely new problem. camera cuts.
When you're watching documentaries and stuff, do you trust when a camera cuts? Because like as someone who makes things, you know that like a camera cut can it can just completely change.
Yeah.
Like just changing the angle can be enough to completely throw an audience off. So like, do you trust when they do that?
Yeah, I trust that they cut out all the crap that didn't make any sense. But I don't want to screw over the people in my documentary by like changing what they're saying. So yeah, it's always based on what direction the director and producer want that story to go. They're trying to tell me a story. It's their story to tell. It's my story to listen to.
Awesome.
Between the subliminal messaging of a camera's placement and the opportunity for deception in editing, it is clear to me that there was no way to create a documentary that people could fully trust as being the truth. So I set up another session with Dr. William Haggerty to try and better understand the minds of my audience and why anyone would willingly watch something that they know to be false.
Why do we feel emotion when we're watching something like TV, even if we know the stories aren't actually real?
Oh, yeah. So I think that has a lot to do with the suspension of disbelief, where we enjoy a good story, right? We are people who like to put things all together and make a narrative out of it. So, and we also like to engage in fantasy, right? It's a wonderful way of escaping some kind of feeling. Not even like to escape like bad feelings, but it's enjoyable. Same thing as reading books or something like that.
But even though people are willing to be misled, I still felt unsure about my role morally in the deception.
Is lying really wrong?
Well, that's a really good question in this day and age, right? If we live in a world where people can say whatever they want to say, then how do we build trust? How do we get to know one another on a basis where we believe one another? How do we know what's real, what isn't real? I lie on a pretty regular basis, but I don't do it for personal gain, and maybe that's the big difference.
If I tell the truth, but in like a sarcastic tone, does that count, or did I kind of get around?
Who's counting?
I guess me in this situation.
Since lying was okay if you aren't doing it for any gain, then I was morally covered as long as I never tried to make a career out of documentaries. However, that meant that I'd have to find a way to get my foot in the door in a different industry.
I don't really think about luck so much, although that word gets used, but I think of luck as being defined as working hard, having a plan, being planful, and preparing yourself so that when opportunities come along, you're able to take advantage of them. Got to be flexible, ready, prepared for opportunities when they come along. Yeah, I'll just take the bun out.
They're organic.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
If President Corey was right, and luck really is just about seizing an opportunity when it presents itself, then I wanted to do everything in my power to be properly equipped when my moment arrived. So I set up a mock interview with respected businessman Mike Oyster to hopefully guarantee that I'd be ready when my opening came along. So, with a resume in hand, I walked in prepared to show why I would be a valuable asset to any organization.
I used to watch Naked and Afraid all the time.
Ah, yes, yeah.
Everybody knows in Naked and Afraid, you either bring a pot to boil water
Yeah.
or a knife. Or a fire starter is the third option, but if you're good enough at wilderness survival, you should be able to start a fire on your own.
Let's do this. Let's shift to a different one. If you could have dinner with anybody, what two people would you want to have dinner with?
Probably Abraham Lincoln before the assassination, and probably Busta Rhymes.
Now, how do those tie into the job that you want to do?
They don't.
I was answering each question with relatable first-hand experiences.
2 $50 Texas Roadhouse gift cards. So being calm in those situations.
And before I knew it, I was the one asking the tough questions.
My girlfriend has often told me that I use too many onions when cooking. I disagree. With that in mind, what is your favorite food?
Depends on a given season, I suppose. What is my favorite food?
Looks like I've stumped you.
Because there's very few foods that I don't like. I love Cajun food. I love Italian food. So I explore a lot of different things. I don't like turnips.
So for the purpose of this interview,
yeah,
should we just say hot dogs?
Sure. I like hot dogs. It's a good question.
Thank you.
But despite how good I felt everything went, I couldn't be completely sure my fake future boss felt the same way.
What are you going to do with your girlfriend's onions? She doesn't like onions. You love onions.
I refuse to change my ways. So let's say this hypothetical interview was a real job.
Yeah.
How would you say I did?
I would say you did excellent. I think that you didn't have pat answers that kind of pre-thought through, so you could just almost start answering before even a question maybe was rendered. You know, it's as much about the questions you ask that lead the conversation as it is the answers you give to my questions. And I think you have you showed a lot of good capability in that regard, but at times kind of mirror the person you're with. Give a little bit back of what they're demonstrating to you. So I had a little bit more of the soft personality, and I think you'll be golden. You already are. I'd hire you.
I had done it. I had landed a high-paying job with great benefits and a pension on my first interview. But while it seemed like I should have been celebrating, something felt off. I had achieved my goal, yet I still didn't feel completely fulfilled. And to make things worse, it had rained a ton the day before I went to film all this contemplative B-roll, and I took a gnarly fall when I slipped in the mud going down a little hill. I needed guidance, and luckily, I had received some advice that applied to just this moment.
I think grounding yourself in who you are and having good people around you that will help you discern sort of where am I going in sort of the bigger sense.
Not to overshadow anything you just said, but I did just get the Wordle in 3.
What's that?
I just got the Wordle in 3.
Oh, excellent.
So
I don't do the Wordle.
Yeah, getting it in 3 is pretty good. That's a pretty good day. That's a good day for me.
So, taking President Corey's message to heart, I got up and began my search for why my protagonistic journey didn't feel complete.
Basically, usually what happens on the hero's journey is there is this unassuming character. Often it's a child, a young man, a young woman, and they are at home living a very basic life. You know, this is your Harry Potters, your Luke Skywalkers, characters like that, and then something happens. They discover that they are actually destined to a greater purpose, or there is a problem that only they can solve. Something happens, and this character has to go on this journey in order to achieve an end, save the world, whatever it might be. And they discover things about themselves along the way. After they have achieved the goal, thrown the ring into the volcano, or defeated Voldemort, or whatever it might be, then they come down the other side of that journey having been fundamentally changed. So that's really what it is this idea of the hero's journey is a normal person can surmount insurmountable odds and become something extraordinary.
Still, I wasn't sure what my apparent greater purpose was. What could possibly be more fulfilling than a job in white-collar America? So to hopefully find that answer, I talked to Professor of Philosophy Dustin Bird, whose whole job is to think about these kinds of things.
Those who live without death in mind tend to live on the surface. They tend to live superficially. They tend to not do something that's substantive and meaningful, right? But simply live for simple pleasures, simple joys, right? Epicureanism, if you will, right? That eat, drink, and be merry today, for tomorrow you shall die. Well, that's not the meaning of life. We are developing ourselves as a means to be a force in society, to somehow make society, to make this world better than the way we found it. That sounds cliche, but it's very important that we not forget that. So a meaningful, well-lived life is a life lived for oneself and for others.
And while it seemed like everyone was pointing me in the same direction, I was still fearful about giving up the security and peace of mind that Mike Oyster had given me when he offered me a job.
Fear is a shadow that guards the doorway to everything worth having. It whispers doubts, amplifies risks, and tries to convince you that staying still is safer than stepping into the unknown. But the truth is, nothing great ever came from comfort. The things that scare you the most are often the very things that will shape you. They'll challenge you and force you to grow into the person that you're meant to become. Fear isn't a stop sign. It's a signal that you're standing at the edge of something transformative. So I would say, don't run from it. In many ways, I think you need to lean into it, because beyond that, fear lies the life you're truly capable of living.
Do you want to do it one more time? Was that as you, or?
No, this was, do you want me to do it like
Yeah, try
okay.
it, do it as you.
I like
see
this
how that
too.
one goes.
Well, it's not mine though. Okay.
We'll just see how it,
okay.
We'll just try to work it out.
Okay. Fear is the shadow that guards.
Even though he was just reciting an AI-generated speech that I had asked him to read, Dr. Haggerty's words really hit me. It was just the push I needed to get past my fear and ultimately continue on in my journey. Unfortunately, that did mean that I'd have to call and turn down the generous job offer that I had just received.
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system. At the tone, please record your message.
Tempting, but no, sorry. This is Stuart, by the way. As I turned the corner to the third act of this documentary, I began to worry about audience retention. I didn't want any viewers to tune out or get distracted, so I set up another session with Dr. William Haggerty to again try and understand the minds of my audience.
Psychologically, why do we get so easily distracted?
Yeah, that's a good question. Distraction is oftentimes very difficult for us to manage, because sometimes we perceive that what's going on around us is really boring, and there's nothing better to do than to find the next best thing to do.
Despite how far into this journey I was, I felt like I still didn't really know much about who I am as a person, but it seemed like someone had already given me a potential solution to that.
Self-interrogation is important. We do things for a lot of reasons that we don't know why we do them. We simply are doing them. We do them because they're custom. We do them because they're habit. We do them because other people are doing them. And so to interrogate those things is to somehow, as Freud would say, to bring the ego where the id is, right? To bring that which is unconscious up to consciousness. If we're going to truly find what the Greeks called eudaimonia, self-fulfillment, we have to know ourselves. And to know ourselves is to interrogate ourselves honestly, go through the painful labor of doing such. You come out a better person.
You want to go ahead and tell me why you think we're here today? I mean, I would guess probably as part of a journey of self-discovery. Is that your actual answer? No, I mean, well, I guess not. Is that a bad answer? Depends. Do you think that was a good answer? No, but I'm also being interrogated by myself in a button-up shirt, so I don't really know what a good answer would be. Hey, son, look at me. This button-up shirt, it's not the only thing that separates us, okay? We're not the same. What the hell does that even mean? You're basically putting in money so that way you can, rather than spending it wherever you want it, you get that exact same dollar amount in value, but only at one location. It's a terrible way of doing things. And so to try to sell something that is already a terrible asset on Facebook Marketplace for 100% of its perceived value. I mean, just what is she even thinking? I'm sorry, what was the question? Do you feel like you have anything you're avoiding? No, I don't think so. You don't feel bad at all, like you're deceiving people? No, I mean, but that's kind of just part of video. Some stuff has to get edited out, and some stuff gets edited in. You know, there's nothing you really can do about that. I can't put the full stuff out there, or else we'll be there for 10 hours watching it. What about during that interview? Did you tell him you were going to eat 3 hot dogs during that? Well, no, I didn't tell him I was going to eat the hot dogs, but in my defense, I also didn't tell him I wasn't going to do that. You're lying to people. I've asked, and it's okay to lie sometimes, is what I've been told. So I don't really get why that's a big deal. And that helps you sleep at night? I'm literally you. I think about my actions. Just the same at night. We're the same person. I'm interviewing myself right now. What are you talking about? I don't just go tell people that we're going to do an interview and then put down 3 hot dogs like they owed me money. Look, when I go home at night to my wife and our 3 beautiful children, I'm proud of the man that I am. I hope someday you can say the same. What the fuck? Specifically in the hero's journey, there's the step they call like the approach of the inmost cave. Can you explain that part of it to me a little bit?
I think if I'm understanding your terminology correctly, the way that I have heard this described is the dark night of the soul, which is a moment where all seems lost for our character. They have to confront something deep and dark about themselves that maybe they've been avoiding up until this point. And then that can sometimes be a very pivotal moment in the journey. You know, this is the moment that makes the viewer or the reader wonder, are we actually going to make it all the way to Mordor to throw the ring in the volcano? Are we actually going to be able to defeat Voldemort? Is there something about our hero as an individual that is impeding their ability to succeed? And this moment is that moment where they confront that.
0 for 19 on shots. I never scored a single point. I let everybody down. It's all my fault.
Yeah, I have to admit that was pretty unexpected. I mean, at some point you probably should have just stopped shooting, but yeah, you just kept on going.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I know they say you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, but you know, you missed 100% of the shots you did take. It was honestly pretty amazing in a way. But hey, you know, there is a lesson here. I mean, you know, look at you. This was a worst case scenario, and yet you're still here. What do you say we just go get some ice cream and maybe that'll help cheer you up?
Really?
No, not really. Look, son, ice cream is for winners. Yeah, true, you did put out great effort, but to be rewarded just for trying hard, no, that sets a bad precedent. You know, so keep your head up. You know, you'll thank me for this one day. Oh, and you're going to need to find another way home tonight. Yeah, I've got a hot date with your mom, and she will not be happy if I'm late again. I mean, she'll probably string me up by my toes and whip my balls. You know what I mean? Oh, geez, that woman's got a fiery streak in her. Let me tell you, it's probably why I love her so much. Anyway, don't wait up. Keep your chin up, and some games you win, and some games you lose. Sometimes you lose pretty miserably. I mean, you fail on all kinds of levels. Like today, I mean, it was painful. I can't even imagine what anybody else is thinking. So, yeah.
I had hit a new low. It seemed like all the motivation of my work was gone. I felt like I was just recording things for no reason at all.
To interact with people and create community and learn about them and impact their lives.
I was stuck with where to go in this documentary and about ready to give up. So I headed to Detroit to see if my non-Emmy Award-winning mentor could help guide me through.
What do you do when you get to a point in like telling a story that it feels like it's stuck?
Step away. Step away. Go for a walk. Take a week, you know, and it'll find you. Patience. Grasshopper.
So I did. I took some time away to try and collect my thoughts, but it still didn't seem like things were getting better.
Do you really need all those onions for that?
My mind was so off track that it was starting to affect my relationships, and I had no possible solutions in mind.
Too much.
It's not
too
that
much.
many. It's not that
You
many.
can
Would
admit it.
You don't
It's
like
too much.
flavor?
That's not
What do
flavor,
you-
that's onion. The whole meal's onion.
The whole meal's not onion.
What else are you making? What else are you making?
It wasn't until I was combing through footage one day that I realized there was one thing I hadn't tried yet.
It's definitely a cliche, long walks on the beach. But I grew up in South Haven, where long walks on the beach was a very regular occurrence. And one of the things that long walks on the beach or a still, dark, moonless night does for you is that you get to look into the sky. And you see this seemingly infinite amount of space. Recognizing the smallness of each one of us. And you look into the natural world, right? And you start to ask those questions. Yes, walking on the beach is important because it tells us something about our human condition that we all should deal with.
Hey, I just, you know, I'm doing the video thing. I had one more thing to film. I didn't know if you would be down to do it. I can come to you. We're doing this because one of the people I interviewed said like that walking on Lake Michigan was a great way to really like get to know himself or something. I don't know.
Lake Huron I'll have to do.
Yeah, I'm just not going to tell anybody that it's not Lake Michigan.
Keep left.
It's all a big lake on video.
Right. Water's water.
Do you like Dunkin' Donuts?
Do I like Dunkin' Donuts?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a big coffee guy, but the donuts are good.
I think that's the same category I fall in.
Yeah, I do not like coffee, but the donuts part excites me.
You really let that butt hang for a while. Do you want to listen to anything?
Yeah, we put something on. Good with whatever.
Actually, I'm paying for the rights of one song for this video. It's Fix You by Coldplay.
Okay.
When you try your best but you don't succeed, when you get what you want but not what you need,
About 22 miles. Continue straight.
when you feel so tired but you can't sleep, stuck in river.
Lights will guide you home.
Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you.
I kind of hoped it would be warmer today. Yeah, it's crazy though. Whenever I look at like a Great Lake, I just can't even really comprehend it at all. I always think like, if I was just dropped here and told this was an ocean, or like someone blindfolded me and drove me here, I wouldn't even question it.
It's a little wild, isn't it? It's just so big to our eyes, it doesn't stop. Even though we both know that like it's just a lake, it has edges, it's not infinitely vast, it seems like it is. It might as well be an ocean in our eyes, because through our little lens right here, it is one. It's the same thing with your camera. It can't show everything, but that doesn't mean that what you're seeing isn't real or isn't beautiful. Just like a Great Lake can trick you into thinking it's the ocean, a video can make you believe you're seeing the whole truth when really, you're only seeing a carefully chosen piece of it. It's not always deception. Sometimes it's just the nature of perspective. I don't think you need to worry about everything that's beyond the frame. Sometimes you just need to appreciate what's in it.
All right, let's do it one more time.
Okay. It's a little wild, isn't it? It's just so big to our eyes, it doesn't stop. Even though we both know that like it's just a lake, it has edges, it's not.
As I drove back that day, I couldn't get the words that I wrote for Ben to read out of my mind. Over these last 4 years, I've been so focused on what my future held that I never stopped and appreciated the present. But I want to change that, and that's why I felt like I needed to write you this letter. I think part of me had always hoped to live that movie-like story where there was never any doubt, where life was only as complex as the writers chose to make it. But as I step behind the camera more, I've come to realize that perfection only exists inside the narrow frames that have been scripted, crafted, and edited. You've taught me, though, that that's just not real life, and it's definitely not me. You've shown me that the fear of making decisions doesn't need to have power over me, because I can handle any outcome. Dad, I think I want to be done with basketball.
All right. That's fine.
Wait, really?
Yeah. No problem.
What about, like, wanting me to be a success and lead the team?
Stuart, I only ever wanted that because I thought that's what you wanted. You know, if it's something you're no longer interested in, I could care less.
Wow. I guess I never realized you were only invested in it because of me.
Truth be told, I can't stand basketball. I hated every minute of it.
Can we get ice cream then?
Yeah, but don't tell your mom, okay? She's doing this fast from dessert thing, and she's prone to get angry if she suspects any of us are actually enjoying ourselves.
Thanks, Dad.
Let's go.
Every person I've come across has taught me something. Even the random actor I found online to play my fake father. Truth be told, I didn't script most of his scenes. He just seemed to be going off the cuff for the most part. Pretty uncomfortable at times, I gotta be honest. But even including him, no one has taught me as much as you have. Throughout this journey, I've come to learn who I am as a person, and more importantly, who I want to be. And neither of those answers revolve around being in a particular profession. You've shown me that no matter what, I'll make it through these moments of uncertainty and self-doubt, because I've done it before. So I just wanted to say that you were right. And more importantly, thank you for being you. You were my rock through this journey, and I wouldn't be the man I am today if it wasn't for you. With love, Stuart Donlan. Perfect. That's all I need.
Okay, good.
Yep. Thanks so much.
I think.
It's coming out immediately.
I have a friend that always cheats when we're playing Clue.
Is that like hell for sure, or does he still have a chance?
Well,